All right, friends, welcome back. I'm, of course, Tony Toon, the great and glorious and beautiful Walrus.
And I am Leanne Palmer, your fairy for the afternoon. So, Tony wanted to discuss the situation at the border.
Yes. And our good friend Alexander Ocasio-Cortez,
who seems to think that our relocation camps are concentration camps. Now, before people get mad, before people get upset with me, they are not concentration camps. They are relocation camps. Now, are the conditions down there
the greatest? No.
No. Can they be improved? Absolutely. And yes, they should be. But they are not concentration camps, because once the people in these camps can say, "Hey, I'm going home,"
yeah,
and they'll be free to go.
Yeah.
If
you can avoid a quote unquote concentration camp by asking to go home, it's not a concentration camp.
Right. Give me just a minute. I will actually look up the definition, because I read heard this on another video the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you search it,
regardless, it just frustrates me, when people sit there and say that Trump is the one dividing the country, that we're fascist or that we're evil, and all that Republicans put out dangerous rhetoric when, and I want to make something clear, Miss Cortez, Congresswoman Cortez, is not the first liberal to have said this, or really I should say progressive, to say that these are concentration camps. That was a talking point the media had right off the bat when that viral video of that girl crying when she couldn't find, turns out that her mother was like 5 feet away, but she couldn't find her mother. And then remember that? And that video, the media tried to hammer that, and it's like, it frustrates me because, I'm just sitting there thinking, I've known this has been going on. Everyone knows this has been. Where the hell did these people honestly not know that this shit was going on? I mean, that's the only rational explanation I can come up with, is that these Democrats and these people who are saying that the wall's immoral or that we're running concentration camps honestly did not know that these problems have existed for decades. That's the only rational explanation I can come up with.
They knew. Now,
they had to have known.
When looking up the dictionary definition of a concentration camp, as published by Merriam-Webster,
mm-hmm.
which I think we can both agree is a valid source.
Yeah, I don't like how they define food, but okay. I don't even know. That was stupid. Go on.
Okay. Like, food, it's something you eat. What's wrong with this definition? No, I didn't look that up.
No, I'm just being a jackass. Go on.
Okay, so when it says definition of a concentration camp, a place where large numbers of people, such as prisoners of war, political prisoners, refugees, or the members of an ethnic or religious minority, are detained or confined under armed guard, used especially in reference to camps created by the Nazis in World War II for the internment, prosecution of Jews and other prisoners. There was one other definition that came up that I also liked on Google, that was a place where large numbers of people, especially political prisoners or members of persecuted minorities, are deliberately imprisoned in a relatively small area with inadequate facilities, sometimes to provide forced labors or await mass execution. The term is most strongly associated with several hundred camps established by the Nazis in Germany and occupied Europe in 1933 to 1945, among the most infamous being Dachau, Belsen, and Auschwitz. Here's my thing. We are not running concentration camps.
No.
One, okay, they may be a relatively small area, but that's because they weren't designed to handle the mass numbers that are trying to cross our border. They were built years ago when numbers were smaller, and that sort of thing. They are not waiting execution.
No.
And they are not being put into forced labor.
No.
Now, here's the other thing that comes up when people talk about these border camps and the conditions in there. And I was watching the news, and they said somebody was going off on how it looked like they had little tinfoil blankets. Let's talk about those quote-unquote tinfoil blankets. Those are reflective, heat-retaining blankets that are used by the military, they're used by hikers, and they are used in space. It is a lightweight material. It takes up very little space in a backpack, and it is very good for what it does. They're actually being given pretty high-tech stuff there.
Yeah.
It may not look high-tech, but it's pretty high-tech.
Yeah, it just, we talked about it in, I think, a other video we did. I just said, these people who basically try to race bait and divide us on this issue. It just goes to show, they don't care about the brain drain. They don't care about the journey. They don't care about the sex trafficking. They don't care about any of this other stuff. They're just doing it for platitudes. And quite frankly, I'm done with them.
I think the other thing I've noticed is a lot of them don't see the effect on the U.S. economy.
No, they don't. They don't care about the effect it has on the labor market. If you can't compete with some poor migrant, you don't deserve. It's like, wow, dude, wow, a way to look out for the lowest members of our society.
Well, not only that poor migrant is illegal and is being paid less than minimum wage to do a job.
Yeah, these are the same people who demand $15 an hour.
And the person that is complaining about this, not being able to get a job for this, is looking at wanting minimum wage. And no, you can't compete with somebody that's willing to take half
minimum wage.
The minimum wage.
No, you can't do it.
I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying that it's an actual issue.
Yes. And we do need to start prosecuting people who hire these illegal immigrants. I think that will fix a lot of this problem. But no, sorry, this is the one issue that really pisses me off, so I've been going off, so I think I've been interrupting you, so go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm fine. I've said my piece.
Yes. In case you haven't told, this is the one. It triggers me because it just I can't think how many times I've been called racist or xenophobic by basically race baiters on this issue. It frustrates me to no end. But on the bright side, Trump has scored some victories.
The Mexico government being willing to put more security down on the border of Guatemala.
Yeah. Yes.
Which we talked about in a previous video.
There was that. Trump has Guatemala is now going to be accepting refugees. Because the way the UN law works is, if there is a crisis in a country, which I think it's fair to say there's a crisis in Venezuela right now.
Yes. Without a doubt, from the footage and everything coming out of there is more than it's an economic, humanitarian,
crisis.
governmental breakdown crisis.
The way the law, UN international law works is as refugees flee, basically, the country next to it, the immediate border countries, are the ones who are supposed to take the refugees. And then those countries are supposed to get help from their neighbors to take care of the refugees.
Okay, and that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Which is why, if there is going to be a war in South America, it's eventually going to be Bolsonaro getting the South American countries together to take Maduro out. I don't know if that's going to happen because Guaido's a socialist too, and no one likes that. But if there is going to be a war in Venezuela, that's what's going to happen.
Okay. And I can see the logic behind that analysis.
Yes. So that's the way UN law is supposed to work. Guatemala and a lot of these other countries haven't been doing that, haven't been setting up refugee centers. And they've just been moving them along. And they've been moving along until they've gotten to the U.S., basically.
Right.
So Guatemala and some other countries are actually going to start setting up refugee centers, which is a huge victory for Trump. And I also think it's very interesting, earlier this year, when Trump was calling this a national crisis, which I think it's been a national crisis for 30 years, migrant caravans or no. I mean, there's been laws in the illegal immigration situation, but I've considered it a national crisis for 30 years. When he was trying to get the Democrats to fund a border wall and fund more border security, they called it a fake crisis, which just lends to my theory that A, one, they didn't know, or B, they didn't care. They probably didn't care.
Or they were trying to spin it to their own political ends.
Yeah, they didn't care, basically. Yesterday, the Senate did pass basically $4.5 billion for more border security. It's in the House right now. It's probably going to be passed, but it's the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes and the Ilhan Omar's. It's the radical left wing that are holding it up right now. Ew, God, the whole thing just frustrates me all to hell. But it's probably going to get passed, which means there's probably going to be more border security. Probably not a lot with the wall, because the walls are getting built for the national emergency Trump declared, which I don't like. I think he should have kept the government shut down, but that's my personal opinion. I think the Democrats would have broken by now, and he could have said. But that's my opinion. That's I could talk about that for a while. Yes.
I have heard you go on and on and on about that for hours.
Yes, about why he needed to keep it shut down. But yes, the whole thing frustrates me to no end. It enrages me. In case you haven't been able to tell, I think I've been pretty calm in most of these videos, but I think this is the one time I've gotten actually kind of angry.
Ooh, he growled.
Why does Trump have so much support? I wonder. I can't figure it out. Anyways, that's all I have to say on the issue. You got anything else to add?
I've pretty much covered everything that I had to say on the issue.
Yes.
For
those of you who are still denying that there's a caravan, that these caravans are existing, people in Africa are taking flights from Botswana, I think it is.
Something.
Yeah, they're flying. They're making trips to some airports in Africa, flying to Brazil, and then taking the trip up through Central America. The Border Patrol has reported record number of African migrants. Okay, so these people have figured out that our laws are so messed up and our border is so porous that if they just get to South America and make the trip, they can get to them Okay. Stop it. Bad.
Right, just look at the situation down at the border, and you can tell that we have a crisis down there.
Yes.
We have a national humanitarian crisis at the border.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not running concentration camps, but our relocation camps, which is what I'm going to refer to them as, or even, I guess you could call them refugee camps, but relocation camps, I think, is a better term.
Yes.
Are not the best. They do need help. They need better conditions. But
to compare our
relocation camps to concentration camps is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And by the way, Miss Cortez, Congresswoman Cortez, the last concentration camps we had in the United States were run by a socialist president, FDR. So, you know,
and
fuck
we
off.
Actually did have concentration camps.
And those were race-based. And, of course, it's unfair to compare those to the ones the Nazis ran, too, because those weren't exactly...
Well, we weren't...
But they weren't exactly picnics either.
Right,
people
they were
died
picnics. People died. They were forced into these camps. They did lose their homes. They did lose their jobs. They did lose all of their money and their belongings.
Yes.
And it was race and politically motivated.
Yes.
They weren't awaiting execution, but
a lot of them died anyway.
A lot of them died anyway. Because of poor conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe there was some forced labor involved.
Yeah. Yeah, there was. Yeah.
But that's the difference between a concentration camp and what we're doing down at the border.
The refugee centers is what they are.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way I describe them.
The people in the refugee centers or the relocation camps at the border are, in fact, awaiting relocation.
Mm-hmm.
They can decide, hey, I'm going to go home. And
good.
Go ahead,
we wanted that.
Go home. Yay. They're not being, put into forced labor. They're not awaiting execution. They're not there for political reasons. They're not there because of their race. They're there because they tried to cross into our border illegally and break the law.
Yes. And, I mean, we can't have people coming in willy-nilly all the time. That would just look at the situation in California to see what happens when you just let people flood in.
Don't get me started. But that some of the stuff I've seen about LA and San Francisco and Seattle on the West Coast.
It's disgraceful.
That's where you're going to get me on a soapbox.
Yes. When the Black Plague comes back and wipes out half the states, then maybe people will start taking this seriously. But anyway, that's all I have to say about it.
That's pretty much all I have to say. Like the video, or if you don't like our video, hit the thumbs down button.
Yeah, tell us why we're dumb.
And then tell us your criticisms in the comment section. If you have questions or comments, put those in the comment section. Do you have a topic suggestion? Put that in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button so that you'll know when our videos go up every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's everything.
Alrighty, you guys have a great day.
Have a good afternoon.